TWM podcast.
Welcome to TWM Talks, available on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, TuneIn, Acast, YouTube, or wherever you go to get your podcast fix. We are, of course, sponsored by Squared Circle Box. Head on over to squaredcirclebox.com and sign up using code TWMNews to get 10% off your first order. I am your host, Rhys Thomas, and this week's guest is one of the UK's fastest rising stars, an entrant in this year's Natural Progression series. He's a regular at Riptide, Fight Club Pro, Attack, and promotions up and down the country. This is a man who says balls to the Chinese calendar because 2019 is the year of the Swan. You all know and love him as Cara Noir. Today, we get to know a bit more about the man behind the character. This is Tom Dawkins. Tom, thank you for joining us today. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, and it's a pleasure to join you. Very good today.
Have you been doing much today?
Just looking after the baby, really, this morning. I've discovered the joys of YouTube and playing Disney songs to her and dancing around the living room to entertain her. So that was essentially my morning.
You wrestling tonight or this weekend at all?
Yes, so I'm wrestling Lucha Britannia this evening, which is luckily literally a walking distance from my home, and then I'm at Attack on Sunday in Bristol.
Okay, yeah, the Goosebumps show.
Yes, that's right. Perfect.
So I'm really hoping to be at that show. I'm not sure yet, but I do love Attack Pro Wrestling.
Go on.
So I was just going to say, 2019, what a year you've had. You've debuted at Progress, you've debuted at Attack, at Fight Club Pro, and had some incredible matches against some of the biggest names in wrestling, Pete Dunne, Pac, Ilya Dragunov, Mike Bailey. Could you imagine things going this way at the start of the year?
Definitely not. No, definitely not. I couldn't imagine this year kind of panning out the way it has. I kind of wanted it to, and I was quite frustrated at the beginning of the year, mainly at myself. But yeah, until the way the year's going, it's kind of, it just seems to get better and better and better, and it's great to receive a message or see a new match graphic pop up of like what performers that I've been wanting to work with for a long while, and then they have that moment where you dance around the living room because you're like, yes. And yeah, it's very exciting. So I like looking back into the beginning of the year. Didn't think I'd be where I am now, but it's just feel very blessed, really.
Yeah, I think something that's really helped with that is that the Cara Noir character is so different to anything that I can ever recall seeing in British wrestling. Having a good character is so important in wrestling. If you look at the WWE, for example, The Fiend, currently the hottest superstar they have right now. In recent years, Demon Finn Balor, very, very popular. Maybe going back further, you look at The Undertaker. So I think it can really take a wrestler, like a good wrestler, and elevate them up to that next level of superstardom. So I was wondering, when was it you started using the Cara Noir character?
It's pretty much, I think it's about 3 years ago this month.
Okay.
And I debuted it at a Lucha Britannia show after about a year of development. I was very kind of unhappy with performing as myself.
Okay, yeah, because you used to perform as Black Belt Tom Dawkins. Actually, I think for a period you were performing both characters. Is that right?
That was right, yeah. For about a year, I was performing as both. So, yeah, when I first did Cara, it just connected with the audience that in a way that my Black Belt Tom Dawkins character, which is essentially nothing other than myself, it never really connected, and I never really felt like I could perform. When you're playing yourself, it's really hard to be a character. It's really hard to explore because you have to filter everything through how you feel about the situation. Oh, Tom, of course, I wouldn't do that. But as Cara, I have this kind of free reign. I know exactly what Cara's motives are, and I know what would tick Cara off. So it makes planning and designing and structuring and telling stories easy. And being able to bring my years of performance into wrestling, and because that's what I was doing before as Black Belt Tom Dawkins, I just kind of shunned the idea of the theatrical, all of this like live performance education that I'd had growing up, and just ignored it and thought I'm going to be a wrestler, not realizing that you have to perform as a wrestler.
Yeah, and then your background in performing, then I guess that must have had quite a big influence on the character then.
Sorry, I missed that question. What was that?
So I guess your background in dance and performance arts must have had quite a big influence on your shaping of the character.
Yes, 100%. I used to do a lot of theatre work when I started doing performance when I was about 11, and then did all the way up to like 18. So that was like dance, drama, singing. Not that I can sing in any which way, but I was good at the other two. And I used to do that with martial arts. I used to do martial arts as well. So I used to do karate as my base. I did Muay Thai, and then jiu-jitsu, Aikido, shoot wrestling, and just everything all the way till MMA. But yeah, the big passion that I had was performing in front of live audiences. So when I would, I love doing theatre work, but I also did film, but I didn't really enjoy being behind the camera because you don't get that instant feedback or that instant relationship with the audience.
I guess when you have someone who's doing martial arts but also has such a background in performance and dance theatre, that on paper it's almost like the perfect recipe for a pro wrestler.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of wrestlers that have danced, and you can see it in their movements and the way they footwork and the way they just pick patterns up. It's obvious, like if you look at, if I give an example, Will Ospreay used to dance, perform, and you can see it in his movements and the way he picks up and joins parts of like tricks and feats and the way he tells stories. It's because of the theatre background that he had growing up, and that's it's something that we both connected on.
Okay, yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that, but I suppose that does make a lot of sense when you put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So going on to the Natural Progression series that you entered this year, I was just wondering, how did that come about? Because sort of from a fan's point of view, we were told that one performer picked each entrant and that Chris Brooks picked you. Did you find out from Chris himself, or did Progress reach out to you?
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember now. I think it was first Progress reached out to me and explained that Chris Brooks had nominated me to be part of the Natural Progression, and it was quite lucky because I was quite blown away by the fact that I was nominated by Chris, and like that meant a lot. It really did.
I've known Chris has been a fan of yours for a while. In fact, the first time, maybe a couple of years ago, the first time I'd heard of you as a wrestler was actually a tweet from Chris Brooks saying Cara Noir is criminally underrated. He should be absolutely everywhere.
That was back when I was wrestling predominantly around the Midlands for Hope Wrestling. We used to do a lot of shows together, and I would get back, and Chris and Eddie, Dennis, and Flash, Morgan Webster would just like be baffled by, have you not had any interest from certain people? Why has no one picked you up, or why haven't you been signed, or why haven't you? I was just like, and they were very complimentary of my work, and they're very instrumental in guiding me into becoming essentially a better storyteller in the ring, and to be then nominated for Natural Progression, which is kind of like was really my entrance into the Progress product. I couldn't think of a better way to enter.
Yeah, for sure. So unfortunately, you didn't go on to win. Lost in the semis to Scotty Davis, who then went on to win. What a talent he is.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. This is not the first time me and Scotty have wrestled. Actually, that was the third time we've wrestled.
I watched one of your matches this morning at Pro Wrestling Clash. Yes. Absolute barn burner.
Yeah, that was that's probably about maybe a year ago now. But it was just. He's another example of someone that has something extra about them. So he, that amateur wrestling background, and you can feel it. And his flow in the ring is amazing. And I kind of feel that with Scotty, we could just be given 20 minutes and absolutely go and kill it, and have this incredibly engaging, exciting match, and be able to tell stories physically, because we're not vocal people, but we tell it with our physicality.
And I guess you guys must have really impressed that day, because since then, in Progress, you've had matches with Pete Dunne and Ilya Dragunov, two of the most popular wrestlers in Europe. So I think that level of talent that you're being booked against speaks volumes about how highly you're regarded.
Yeah, I kind of that's an example of just feeling lucky. Really, the Natural Progression, I did do that tournament. I did the 3 matches I wanted, because that was the real motivation that I had going in, because I want to show everyone my diversity. I'm not just a character performer. I'm not just a martial artist. I'm not just a gimmick. I'm not just whatever you think of me. And that weekend gave me the opportunity to do 3 matches in front of the Progress audience, and then do it in front and with Pete, showcasing another layer of what I can do. And I think, only good things have come out of that since. And wrestling Ilya was, I don't know whether you've seen it yet, but it was a really intense atmosphere, and people knew there was this big fight feel from just from the entrances from both of us. They knew something special was going to happen, and I just love fighting and wrestling people and telling stories with people that bring that intensity, that energy, and different flavors. I don't want to wrestle the same person.
Well, you say that, but today I've seen announced you're going up against Ilya again in a rematch at the next Progress chapter.
Yeah, that's true. And I just feel that there's so much more to tell. We just kind of scraped the surface. And there's something, I definitely feel that there's a lot more that we can give. So when I say I don't want to wrestle the same person, that's probably the wrong thing to say, but I don't want to wrestle the same match. I don't want to wrestle, I don't want to just be doing tech wrestling matches. I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I want to stretch myself as a performer. So being able to wrestle Dragunov a second time means that we have to beat the first time. Now there's the challenge, and that's the thing that really gets me going. How do you beat the first time? That's the thing that really excites me.
Well, yeah, I'm certainly excited to watch that match for sure. Just on the subject of Pete Dunne then, another place where you debuted this year was Attack Pro Wrestling, where you're now a 4-time 24/7 champion. What I was wondering is, what's it like wrestling at Attack? The impression I get is that all the wrestlers have so much fun on those shows, much to the dismay of Damien Dunn.
Yeah, it is. It's community. It's everyone there is there because they want to put on the best show that they can, and it's one of the most friendly backstage environments that you can be around, and everyone there wants to see everyone succeed. It's not obviously we are all competitors and competing with each other for kind of like position, but really Attack are a group of guys that actually want to see everyone succeed. And I remember when I first showed up there, and as soon as I walked in, there was a few people that would come up and be like, oh, it's really good. Are you here? Are you actually on the show? Oh, wow. And they got really emotional that I was there. And that's not really something that you get many places. People were genuinely happy to see you succeed and be a part of their promotion. Like, I felt very... I don't know, how do I describe it? Part of the cool kids.
I know what you mean. It's something I really admire about the guys at Attack. They obviously want to go on and wrestle at the highest level they can, but they realize to do that they have to help build up their opponents, build up those around them, and sort of all rise up together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you can see that in the work that they produce. Yes.
How did you first get involved with Attack? Was that through Chris as well?
Yes, that was through Chris as well. Now you're really testing my memory. I don't remember now. I think it was through Chris as well. I think it was Chris, and like as I listed before, like people like Eddie and Flash and Pete, kind of campaigning to get me in. And I think timing's everything. You can't. I feel like it was the same with Progress. In theory. Yeah, there's a part of me that feels like I should have been there years ago, but it wasn't the right time. And now it's the right time. And I feel that I think it's I think it was the same with Attack. But yeah, I was very yeah, and the matches that they've given me at TAC and allow me to showcase what I do is amazing, because their platform has got a great following.
Yeah, I think, was it only a couple of matches in as well? You were main eventing the Walkabout show, which is their bigger show, like double the capacity of their regular shows. So, that's quite a big deal.
Yeah, no, it really was, and that was me and Damien, and we had a great match. Yeah, had a really good match, and from there it's just been just people that I've been dying to wrestle for such a long time, and I get to kind of do that at TAC, which has been amazing.
Another promotion you've wrestled for is OTT in Ireland. I was wondering, is that the furthest from home you've wrestled, or what countries would you like to wrestle in?
Furthest from home that I've wrestled. Now you're going to test me on geography. I probably would say, where's the furthest I've been? Maybe Malta's further. I guess Malta's further. Yeah, Malta is definitely further. Yeah. So Malta's the furthest I think I've been. But then I have done I've done other shows throughout Europe. But yes, I think OTT is the first big one I've done out of country. The OTT crowd is intense. And,
I've not been myself, but I watch it on YouTube, and that crowd is crazy.
Yes, it is crazy, and it's it just drives me further. Like when you've got like a rabid crowd like that, you just ups the energy of the room even more, and it's it's great for the performance to work with. It's really good energy, and backstage as well. It's very similar to like vibes to TAC. Like everyone's very friendly, lovely, and supportive.
This podcast, and indeed all TWM podcasts, are brought to you by SquaredCircleBox.com, the only place for your monthly wrestling box needs. With things from superstars from WWE, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, British Wrestling, Independent Wrestling, and loads more, it is the only place that matters if you want to get the best wrestling swag for a low price. That low price is just £25, people. What a bargain! And you can get snapbacks, t-shirts, magazines, DVDs, trinkets, whatchamacallit, doodads, you name it, they have it each and every month. And just because you listen to TWM, you sexy people, you get 10% off your first order. All you got to do is use the code TWM News in the checkout. Just use the code TWM News in the checkout for 10% off your first order at SquaredCircleBox.com.
I said, why not spread the gospel of the TWM squad with some of our lovely merch over at Teespring? We have t-shirts for all shapes and sizes, hoodies, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, and loads more. Also, just for listening to this podcast, you can get 10% off your order. I said using the code podcast. That's podcast. Once again, podcast in the checkout for 10% off at teespring.com/stores/TWM-wrestling-merch. That's right. Praise. Testify.
So one of the many things I love about going to wrestling shows is the variety of different venues that you get to experience. For example, I've been to shows in nightclubs, warehouses, bingo halls, a church, a barn, an art gallery. And recently, I think there was a show held in a cave.
That's right, yeah.
So what I was wondering is, what's your favorite venue that you've performed at?
Oh, wow, that's a hard question. What is my favorite venue that I performed at? Like, every venue I feel that offers something very different. Like, like Alexandra Palace for me, Wrestling Pete was massive, to the point where I watched the entrance back that was shot by my partner. She shot it from the back of the room, and I looked at it and thought, that is exactly why I designed the entrance the way I wanted it, because that is how I wanted the entrance to be. I wanted it to be on this grand stage and with the lighting and the production behind it, because then it really does move people. However, saying that, one of my favorite places to perform is smaller venues where they're really intimate, and sometimes you have no lighting. So there's a like Attack, for example, in Wales, in the bingo hall. Like, that is really intimate. There's no lighting. All they do is switch the lights off for me, but it still has the same effect because those wrestling fans are so involved. So I don't know whether it's necessarily the building itself, but it's the fans. Lucha Britannia, which is in a little archway up the road, is
Resgal.
Yeah, the Resgal, yeah.
Okay.
So that is very intimate. The crowd are pushed up against the ring. They expect to be dove on. It gets to like unbearable heats in the summer. But it's this punk rock vibe, and it's so like performance art with, like, you can actually see and touch the audience, and they're so close, and they're not necessarily wrestling fans, but they are there to see a spectacle, and that's another sort of venue that I love to work in, and the challenge of working in that venue when it's ridiculously hot in the summer is I think the reason why I can keep up with 19-year-olds with my cardiovascular capacity. But yes, so but yeah, I have worked in like obscure places like churches, I'm trying to think of what, but yes, there was one in the cave recently, which I would have loved to have been a part of, and they did ask me, but I couldn't get the date to match because I'd love to have done that entrance in the cave. But yeah, like one of my favorites recently also was like doing it at the Roundhouse, because wrestling doesn't happen at the Roundhouse.
I've heard a lot of promotions tried to get there, but they just refused, like the venue just refused it. But I actually wasn't aware there was a show there. Do you know what promotion it was?
That was Lucha Libre World. So that was where they bring a lot of the Mexican wrestlers, Helio De Santo and Cassandro, just to name a few, over, and they kind of showcase Lucha Libre. Okay. And they do that in partnership with Lucha Britannia.
So moving on, I recently saw a video on Twitter advertising a Learn to Flip in 90 Minutes seminar, which I thought was a really, really cool idea. And I didn't make the connection at the time. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later that I actually realized that that's your class.
Yes. The learn to backflip. It sounds crazy and slightly ambitious. However, it's like we tried to do it in an hour and it doesn't quite work. However, you can get it in 90 minutes. Not to say that everyone will get it, but the point of the class is to kind of just come and play and encounter a fear, because a lot of people that come are generally, it's learn to backflip. So you've got to be slightly confident, but just there's something stopping you. And we have such a great setup we're currently using an archway, a place called CrossFit London, which is, again, in Bethnal Green, so it's not too far from where I am. But the equipment there is amazing, and we have blow up tracks, and this big wheel to aid people to perform the backflip. So essentially within that 90 minutes, we allow people to understand all the body shapes that you need to achieve it. And then by the end of the class, even if it involves my support, you're going to start learning the backflip to then carry on and then progress it in your own practice. It's a really fun class. Yeah, I would highly recommend anyone to kind of do it. We don't run the 90-minute all the time, because we do run like 3 different courses currently. We do a body positive level 0, which is anyone. You can come. Doesn't matter whether you've got anxiety about being in part of in a class. That is, or you're just frightened about going overhead and doing a forward roll for the first time. That's the perfect class. And then we have level 1 for people a little bit more confident that want to go from forward rolls, basic body shapes, all the way to back flips. And then level 2 is just let's start tumbling. We launched that at the beginning of the year, and it's really kind of taking shape and taking form. And me and my partner are, really enjoying teaching those classes.
It's not something you really see a lot of adult gymnastic classes, but it is, on the face of it, it sounds like a great idea.
And like it is like in the fact that there aren't many. There's hardly any. There's a lot of places that you can go and learn flips, for example, like as in tricking classes, but there's nowhere that teaches actual gymnastics to adults, particularly. Like it's really hard to find an adult school, and we've really just taken what we do. And my partner is trained by a Russian Soviet. So she's the real gymnast. I'm what I would like to call a backyard gymnast, who would just throw themselves around and have stumbled around and learn how to do it. But she's the real gymnast. And the point of the whole, what we do as Reset Lab as a company is just teach people to have fun and enjoy their practice, whether that is gymnastics or anything else. It's like a little known fact, I do promote it every now and then, but don't talk about it enough, is that I don't go to the gym. I don't lift weights. I don't train in a particular normal way. All I do is handstands and Olympic rings and gymnastics, just because that's what I enjoy and that's how I like to move, because I get bored. Like I don't want to do something that's going to depress me or make me feel like, lifting weights, I feel is slightly methodical.
Yeah, that's almost. I'm trying to imagine you saying to someone that you don't lift weights and them just looking at you. So as well as wrestling, gymnastics, dance, karate, I understand you also have a background in playing rugby.
Yes, I do. Not the best background in playing rugby, but I have played rugby. Yes. I played rugby. Like I just hated football as a kid. I used to play it, but I just hated it. And then it wasn't until my dad took me to a rugby club that I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to run into people and hit them hard. I did that. I played wing for most of the time just because I could run. And I was quite weedy at points when I was playing rugby, but I could run fast. I played all the way up to uni and carried on through uni. And then when I come out of uni, I kind of decided that wrestling was the journey that I wanted to go on. So as soon as I started wrestling, you don't have any time for anything. So unfortunately, rugby kind of went out the window.
So have you managed to keep up with the World Cup at all?
Do you know what? Normally I'm 100% on it, but this year, because the my daughter, she's only coming up to 8 months now. I don't get a lot of sleep. So the idea of sitting through a 80-minute game where I could be like catching up on sleep or looking after her or doing something else or tidying up or doing some marketing for either Reset Lab or Cara is I haven't followed it at all. To be fair, I haven't followed anything at the minute. But so which is unfortunate.
So you mentioned the little ones keeping you busy. Do you have much time then to watch any wrestling on TV, like WWE and AEW, for example?
No, but I do. I really do try to watch catch-ups on just to keep abreast of news and what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't get a chance to sit down and watch many matches. However, I say that if I know I'm wrestling someone particular and I either don't know them very well or I want to do research on them, because I research pretty much everyone I wrestle, I will sit down and watch a series of their matches. So that's really the amount of wrestling that I watch. If I know I've got someone that's a match coming up, I will research that individual.
Okay, so when you sit down on your sofa in front of a TV, is wrestling be the first thing you go to, or would you watch just kind of normal TV as like a release from your day job, as it were?
Again, I don't have a lot of time to even consider sitting down on the sofa. However, if my preferred element for me is not necessarily to watch TV or watch wrestling, it's to switch off, and for me, it's gaming. I like playing games. I like playing games with stories and narratives and really good single player games. That is. When I get a free hour in a week, maybe that is what I will do.
I'm the same as you. I absolutely love Red Dead 2, the Spider-Man game. Both love it.
Yeah. I managed to get Red Dead 2 completed before the baby arrived, which I was really proud of, because that game was like a novel, and I knew that if I didn't complete it before she arrived, I wouldn't finish it.
Do you know, I played it every day, and it took me about 8 months to complete it.
I got through it quicker than that, thankfully, but probably 2 months I think it took, really blitzing through it, just the story. But it was great.
So on the subject of TV, I understand you've made a couple of appearances on TV and in various films before.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. It's possible to find me. I didn't do as I said to you before, my real passion was live performance. So the main things that I did as a child was extra work, and I did do a little bit parts in other things, but the only the most mainstream stuff that you'll find me in is generally extra work. So I did, everyone knows someone that did Harry Potter. I did Harry Potter. I did some Midsummer Murders, The Bill, these sort of generic things seems to be in when they do extra work. But so you can find me if you really look for me at certain points. But I did a lot of period dramas. Which was great fun. As a kid, it just means you just sat in a bus and played cards for a day and got paid for it. Occasionally walked past the camera.
I guess really good experience too, so that now when you're being filmed doing what you do, it almost feels natural.
Yeah, standing in front of a camera is really, really hard, and it's still something that is difficult. But I think that's also why, if I go a bit full circle, and when talking about developing Cara and the difference between Tom Dawkins and Cara, I was never trained to play myself. I was always trained to play to someone else, and playing someone else and playing Cara, as soon as that camera switches on, I can perform and I can be that character. Whereas if you're playing yourself, you feel very vulnerable. So I think that's kind of why, going back to the idea of the roots and where I came from and all the film work I did, really inspired that transition to the character of Cara, particularly.
And you featured in Men's Health magazine too, is that right?
Yes, that was I was playing someone else actually. I think that was with Lucha Britannia, and I was doing the character Pure Britannico, and that was quite an interesting evening because they were discussing the fitness that's required, and they were interested to talk to me as a personal trainer, and then they asked me whether wrestling was dangerous and what have you. And then in the match I got knocked out 3 times and split my lip open and come back, and they got some lovely pictures of me completely out of it, and quite scaredly been beaten up by one of the Mexican wrestlers that had come over. That was part of a Lucha Libre World event. And to the point where I remember packing, a bit of an anecdote, but I remember packing my bag at the end of the night, going home and realizing there was nothing in my bag, and I'd left it all in the venue. That's how bad I was. Oh,
wow.
Yeah, scary, right? So yes, I was in Men's Health, and the feature was about how doing this kind of like on the side, really, and how they of personal training, which is quite funny now looking back. Now you've said this, that actually that was 3 or 4 years ago, and now actually it's the other way around. I do training on the side of doing wrestling, which is quite funny. So
you still work as a PT, or has the school sort of taken over now?
Yeah, so mainly with the school. Like I do still train people individually from time to time, but it's more their friends. Like just that I've like trained for such a long period of time, I didn't want to get rid of them. But again, it's only because I enjoy doing it. So yeah, I don't really PT anymore. I don't really do one-to-ones particularly. And the school keeps us so busy that we don't have time for anything else, especially with my schedule at the minute.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like you're keeping your hands full, and some really exciting times too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so.
So, looking forward then, what are your goals for the next year or so? I mean, after such a incredible 2019, it's going to be pretty hard to top it, I think, but I'm sure you can do it.
I'm quite a quietly determined individual. So like if someone says to me like sets like almost like an incentive challenge, like kind of like, can you top like last year, my insiders go, yes I can, and I'm gonna prove it, kind of thing, but okay, quietly to myself. That's
my challenge to you now.
But yeah, like I don't know, can I top, like I've had such a like an interesting end of the year, really, like to where it was at the beginning to where it is now, and yeah, I feel really lucky, and there will be opportunities that have come off the back of my exposure with Progress and Fight Club Pro and OTT and Attack and Riptide, off the back of all of these. So I feel really, for me, it's variety. Like I like to wrestle different people in different locations, in different audiences. For me, it's the challenge of doing something new and always leaving the audience surprised. Like I don't want anyone to see me wrestle and think I saw this match elsewhere. That's not what I want to do. I want to push myself as a performer. So I love spending the weekend wrestling multiple different people, and each match will be stylistically different and have different themes in, where, like, I don't know, to use an example, we had the Riptide Weekender, and I wrestled Su Yung in the most, I don't know how to describe it. It was theatre. It wasn't it was wrestling theatre. That night, the first night, and the next night I wrestled a really emotional story with Cassius the Neon Explosion, who my job then was to show the world how good he is, and those two, they were very distinctly different matches, and that's the thing that really drives me. So I don't really know where next year is going to take me, but the drive for me is I want to create new pieces with even better wrestlers that can challenge me, and to see how far I can push my performance skills.
Is there anyone you haven't wrestled yet who you'd really like the opportunity to work with?
It's really interesting because I'm not the dreamer. My partner's the dreamer. And she would probably be able to list off all of these people that she wants me to wrestle. However, when the names come up and the opportunities come up, that's when I get excited. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a good choice. I can wrestle this person and it's going to be amazing because of this. So that's a really hard question for me to answer, but I just kind of want to be, I suppose anyone that can kind of just push me into a different version of, just stretch me as a performer, I really guess is kind of the best way to describe it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so that sounds like a pretty good time to wrap up then. Tom, thank you so much for your time today.
That's fine. It was great talking to you, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
What are your social medias for the fans to find you?
That's also a tricky question. Let me think. So on like Twitter and Instagram, I think it's Cara_Noir. And if you can't, if that's incorrect, just go to caranoir.com and everything's all there. Merchandise, what I'm doing currently, things I'm involved with. I need to update it and start to put in, like, I did a lot of projects over the year with like Arts Council funded projects and with the National Theatre, and I just haven't updated it yet. So it will come, because people have asked me about, what are these projects you're working on? Because I might tweet about them occasionally and not fully finish. But yeah, so like everything's up there. If you want to read where even like the idea of Cara come from and the backstory, Cara's backstory, it's there. And merchandise is there as well, so you can always support. And there is a link from that to the Reset Lab, so you can come and learn gymnastics and get thrown about by me and learn how to do a backflip.
Brilliant.
It's probably the best way to find everything that I do.
Fantastic stuff. So I've been your host, Rhys Thomas. This has been Tom Dawkins, and thank you for listening.